out because we want the table for somebody else. For them, it was more, no, make it a place people want to go to meet their friends, to wherever. My local Starbucks is a complete nightmare, because if I want to go down there to get out of the office for a bit and go and do some work, at 10 o'clock in the morning, all the mothers with pushchairs and babies arrive. And it's a complete disaster, because it is such a nice place to go and read and have a chat. So they competed by, first of all, creating something different about service, most importantly, doing something about a new type of environment. And the third facet of Starbucks that they did very differently was their strategy was not the usual strategy for restaurants, which is open one, when it's profitable, open a second one. When that's profitable, open a third one. What they said is, we're going to be on every street corner. We're going to be better than anybody else at getting in front of customers. So what they're saying is, it's not just that our product's going to be great, but we're actually going to be better than other people at getting in front of customers. It's a bit like with consumer goods. You know, the way to sell a consumer good is to get into every supermarket. As a brand manager, you used to pride yourself on it was because of the quality of your advertising that made your market share go up. Actually, getting into 10 more stores probably had a bigger impact. So, so ways of competing: service, either quality, service, speed, comes from Starbucks. Environment within which you produce your product. The environment you create in which you present your product or service can be a competitive advantage. How you get in front of customers can be a competitive advantage. That's three just from Starbucks. What about these guys? Apple. When you think about Apple, what do you think about that they did differently? Anybody? What do they do? What makes them better? Customer service is certainly a big one with them, yeah? I mean, you know, if you ever got an Apple helpline, I don't know if has anybody here ever been on an Apple helpline when they've had a problem? You know, they are very good. Oh boy, are they good. Because they don't talk down to you, they don't use lots of jargon and fancy language that people like me don't understand. They really sympathise with you, they work out what your problem is and they help you to solve it. So they do a lot on service, yeah? Anything else for Apple? Shout at me, come on, some of you must have Apple products. Why do you like them? Intuitive, I agree, absolutely. They are so easy to use. You know, they really are. The first time I converted about 18 months ago, the first time I opened it, I knew how to use it almost straight away. It was fantastic. And yeah, so that's another way to compete. So they're competing on, yes, quality of after-sales service. They're competing on ease of use. Clearly they compete on design as well, because they always look cool, don't they? They always look good, you know. So that's three completely different things to the way Starbucks competes. Tiffany & Co. I'm sure you guys all are so wealthy because of the success of the brand that I'm sure you all shop at Tiffany all of the time. But again, Tiffany, what do? They compete on, there's an image of sort of exclusivity, isn't there? They play the exclusivity card, which allows them to move up the price. There's a thing about environment. In their case, it's quality of service to do with personal attention and making you feel like the most important celebrity that's ever walked into their shop, you know. What else do? They have very unique designs. And they rotate them regularly, don't they? So things like, what was it last year? The key, wasn't it? They had a little key shape that they used as their symbol last year. I can tell my wife likes Tiffany. Key shape, and then this year I think it's concentric circles or something. I can't remember. But they're very, you know, and the idea being that I'm told, I'm not a woman myself, but I'm told amongst women, it means you know it's from Tiffany when you see it by seeing the design. Yeah, I'm told that you can do that. So, you know, very distinctive in terms of what they do. McDonald's. Remember when McDonald's first appeared in all of our countries? When somebody, unfortunately, let it out of America. Actually, I lied, because I'm actually big McDonald's. I used to love McDonald's as a kid. But I remember when it first came to the UK in the 1970s. What was the big difference? Speed. Yeah, fast, wasn't it? It was speed of service. We never come across anything. You know, normally, you'd have to go and sit down at a table and wait for some. This is the idea of going up to a counter and getting your food. They didn't have to go and cook it; it was already there. You know, it was speed of service was their critical thing. Critical thing. Obviously, there's a lot they do in terms of going after specific target markets as well. They go after children. You know, so another way of competing is to have a very, very clear, tight target market, isn't it? Speed of service in their case. Lots, obviously, communication, big scale is a big part of theirs. One of my favourite brands in the world. I love this brand. Disney. What did Disney do? Any thoughts? Sorry? Fun. Yes, absolutely. They work on a principle of feelings. It's about the magic. The magic arrived. Feel the magic. And that's what they work to. So they don't have a specific brief. It doesn't say our product will be longer or more expensive or shorter or whatever, or our service will be this. They work their teams around a feeling they want to create. We want everybody to feel like they've had a magical day. And then that opens the door to lots of different ways of doing that, doesn't it? I remember, again, a short story on this one. I do remember the first time for me with Disney was, well, it actually wasn't the first time. We'd been to theme parks before, and it was the first time for my youngest son to go on a particular ride. When we'd been before, he wasn't tall enough to go on this helter-skelter ride thing. And this year he was tall enough, so he was really excited. So we went on the ride. And it was great, and he had a great time, and he came out with a big grin on his face. He had a wonderful time. And as he's walking off the ride, one of the Disney ladies comes along to him. And the first thing she does, she comes down on one knee, so she's down at his height. Great customer service, eye to eye, not talking down at all. And she talks to him and she said, "You've just been on that ride. Did you enjoy it?" "Yeah, it's my first time. It was really good." She said, "I'll tell you what then. Can you tell me who this is?" Donald Duck or something, I don't know. 3 badges. "Can you tell me who they are?" She knew he'd know the answers. He said, "Because you've been so clever at answering my quiz questions, I've got a treat for you. Come with me, bring your brother as well." And what she did, she took the 2 of them back to the front of the queue so they could go on the ride again without having to wait another half hour or so. Now, simple little thing, I'm sure she does that 30 or 40 times a day, and it's a complete formula. But for my child, it was the magic. You know, and how many people has he told that story to? How many people have I told that story to? You know, the point about it is, they home in their competitive advantage on a feeling they want to create, and then there are just so many different ways of doing it. And when we get onto customer promises in a few minutes, you know, I would argue that if you can create a customer promise around customer feelings, it's a really powerful tool sometimes that you can actually use. I always put that one on. I mean, for those of you not familiar with it, this was the first of the low-cost carriers. This was the model that a lot of people copied, Southwest Airlines in America. And that was the thing that EasyJet and Ryanair and Air Asia Express, is it? Asia. The ones like that, they all came from. And again, the reason I bring this one up is to say that, you know, frankly, I don't want to compete on price. Because when you compete on price, it says you fail to create value for a customer, to be honest with you. But if you are going to compete on price, you need to do what these guys did, which is create the lowest cost operation. And actually, they didn't compete on price in the early days. They competed on efficiency. They said, we are the most punctual airline because we close the door and we go. Yeah, and if you're not on board, tough, that's your fault. We said we were going at 10 o'clock, we went at 10 o'clock, where were you? You know, and they used to have an advert with their chief executive missing his aeroplane. You know, we'll even shut out our chief executive if he's not there on time. But I mean, the reason I put this chart up is just to say, look guys, don't forget that when we talk about the customer promise and when we then turn it into things, it's not about product quality necessarily. Product can come in many forms. It could be product quality, it could be product range, you know, it could be distinctivity, it could be the personalization of the product. There's lots of ways of making your product competitive. Then you go to service, and there's lots of ways of making it. Maybe it's speed of service, maybe it's quality of service, maybe it's empathy, maybe it's after-sales service. I mean, that was another one about Apple. You ever been in an Apple shop? A big Apple shop? Do they have one in Kuala Lumpur yet? Yeah, what are we going to do? You know what it's like? When did you ever go in an electrical shop and they allowed you to touch things? It's brilliant, you know. Most electrical shops, they're wired down to stop you stealing them. Whatever. Apple, they say, come in and play. Come and have a go. Have a turn. Because they know they'll sell more by doing that. But you know, around service, there's lots of things you can do. It might be about how well you get in front of customers and what you do there. It might be about communication. It might be about image. It might be about creating a feeling. It might be about speed. It might, you know, there are so many different ways. But how do you choose? You can't do them all. So how are you going to choose which one you do for your customers? And of course that starts off with your customer insight. But then you've got to distill your customer insight down into something you can use. And that's where the customer promise comes in. And the customer promise comes in as your vehicle for creating something out of your insights that gives you a platform for then the transformation. And a couple of principles I'm going to share with you around customer promises through to the coffee break at 1:30. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at your one after the break, and then I'm going to get you into some stuff about stealing ideas from other places and all that sort of fun bits. But I want to just tell you a little story for, about 15 minutes or so. I want to give a quick story about customer promises. The learning, I mean, customer promises came originally from consumer goods, and it was places like Procter & Gamble. And what they said was, and it's kind of tough learning at the time, your world is your product or your service. It's what you do for a living. The message you were given at Procter & Gamble very early on is, the customer does not care about your product. The customer does not care about your service. What they care about is what it does for them. Because it's their world, not yours. And therefore, you would create a customer promise based on the benefit to the customer, not what you do. Now, we all hear that in textbooks and business schools and whatever. But how often do we do it? Because it's so easy to get absorbed into what we do as the centre of everything that we do. And consumer goods would have two. They'd have the benefit, what's in it for me, and the reason to believe, the reason why, which is why I should believe the benefit. So, like a Volvo car, if you think about Volvo cars, what do they stand for? Safety. It's about your safety. What you're buying is safety for your family. The reason why you should believe that is because I've got great seat belts and airbags and roll bars, but the product is second. What matters is the so what question. So what's the benefit for the customer? But it's not just about knowing the answer to that. It's about making the so what question the actual core of your activity. So the brand is about the benefit, not the product is just a reason to believe the benefit. So Volvo cars are about safety. Everything they do is about, we're going to focus on being safer than anybody else. Mars, the chocolate company, they used to be brilliant at this. Every Mars product was sold on a benefit. A Mars a day helps you work, rest and play. Mars bars give you energy. The reason why? Glucose and syrup and chocolate and whatever. My favourite one was a product called Milky Way. We sell in the UK. And this was sold aimed at mothers. Mums, this is the one you can give to your children and it won't spoil their dinner. Because it won't fill them up too much and they'll still eat your nice, healthy, nutritious dinner. The reason why? Well, because it's only about that size from what I remember. It's very disappointing when your mother got your Milky Way. Your Mars bar was this big and the Milky Way was about that size. But also it was light and fluffy and didn't fill you up. But the product was second. So everything they did was about mums and meals. So that's there's a third part to the strategy as well, which is called the tone of voice. I'm going to tell you a little very quick story about that one. The tone of voice. We would also define that. So the strategy, the customer promise, would be written in three parts. The benefit, the reason to believe, or the reason why, and the character or tone of voice. Now that's what that message says is, the way you deliver a message is just as important as the message itself. Okay, the way you deliver. And therefore it's important at the strategy stage to define the tone of voice. I mean, it's something you'll know inside out from the marketing point of view. But at the core of everything you do comes the way you say it. And I'll tell you a little story about that, how I